In the 60 years I've been practicing and teaching law, I've never seen a decision that is so anti-democratic and so unconstitutional. It is absurd. The idea that the 14th Amendment was supposed to be a substitute for the impeachment provision carefully drafted by the framers is wrong. If you want to impeach a president, if you want to make him not be able to run in the future, there's a provision. It requires a 2/3 vote of the Senate. But the idea that the framers of the 14th Amendment intended to circumvent that carefully drawn provision and simply allow any state to make up grounds for denying him the right to be on the ballot undercuts democracy. The 14th Amendment itself is very clear. It says in Section 5, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. The Congress, that's the United States Congress. There's no provision in the 14th Amendment for any state, or certainly any state court, to interfere with the right to vote by its citizens. So this is a terrible, terrible decision. It will cause disarray. It will, if it were to be affirmed by the Supreme Court, which I doubt it will be, it would cause distrust in the electoral process and would result in a repeat of 2020, where whatever the result of the election was, particularly if Trump were to lose, he wouldn't accept the loss, and he would have, in this case, some legal basis for questioning whether or not the courts had any proper role to play in taking him off the ballot of some states. Right now, he's only been taken off the ballot of a state in which he was going to lose anyway. But this decision, the logic of this decision applies to any state. It really says any state can disqualify Trump because they've made a conclusion that he was involved in an insurrection. Wouldn't even know what an insurrection is. He hasn't been charged with insurrection. He hasn't been convicted of insurrection. People will say that Biden was involved in an insurrection in allowing thousands of people to come across the border, or the people who were involved in the Black Lives Matter demonstrations, or the people today who are protesting in the streets all over the country against American policy toward Israel. Some of these are socialist revolutionaries. You have to have a definition of what an insurrection is. Right. And the Colorado Supreme Court gets a C-.
It's debatable, isn't it? The language is behind the insurrection.
Say it again?
I said it's debatable what that term insurrection means.
Well, it's not debatable because it has to be defined. You can't have something that's debatable as a provision for getting voters denied the right to vote for or against Trump. I want to vote against him, but I want the election to be a clean election. I want him to lose fair and square and not allow him to have an argument that, look, the Supreme Court of Colorado or other state courts denied the voters the right to vote for me.
And the Trump team has already said, we're appealing, we're going to the Supreme Court with this one. You look at the makeup of the Supreme Court, leans conservative, considered 3 justices have been Trump appointed. Does that give you insight as to how this case might play out if it does make its way to the U.S. Supreme Court?
I think this case will be decided not along party lines in the Supreme Court. I think this is such an extreme stretch of the 14th Amendment that he will get more votes than just the people he appointed to the Supreme Court, or even the 5-4 conservative majority. I suspect he'll get the Chief Justice, and I suspect he'll get some other justices as well. This is an extreme, extreme stretch. If you go and read the text of the provisions, it doesn't even apply to president. It says no person shall be a senator or representative or elector. And then it gives an oath of office. And the oath of office is not the presidential oath of office. It's the senatorial oath of office. So even the text of the Constitution doesn't make it applicable to the president. But the amendment itself was designed simply to prevent people who fought in the Civil War from running for certain offices. You know, Trump's old, but he's not old enough to have fought in the Civil War. So this amendment is not applicable to him. This was a one-off. This was not designed to create a new method of disqualifying people generally on the basis of a state court determination.
So, Professor, should the Supreme Court take this case, which they likely will, there are 3 Trump-appointed justices on there. How do you think that they'll rule on this?
Well, I think they will probably rule against the Colorado court. Whether they'll rule against them on procedural grounds or on substantive grounds, nobody can tell. But I don't think that we'll see an affirmance of this decision. I think what we're going to see first is a stay. Okay. The Colorado Supreme Court granted a stay early January. I think the Supreme Court will grant the stay until they can hear the case